Alright, so this video is going to focus on solving polynomial equations. Most specifically, we're going to focus on solving equations that are not quadratic, so something that has a higher degree. In this case, we've got degree 3. We have 4 terms, so my strategy is going to be to try to use the grouping technique. So I'm going to group these first 2 terms together. I'm going to find their GCF. What I notice is these 2 terms have a common factor of 3x squared. So I'm going to factor out 3x squared from those first 2 terms. If I were to distribute 3x squared, I would need x plus 2 in parentheses to get me back to this original expression. I'm going to use the same strategy now. For the second 2 terms, I've got to make sure that I'm including this sign right here, because what you'll notice on these second 2 terms is that my GCF is going to be a -7 in this case. By factoring out a -7, I'm going to need x plus 2 left over inside of parentheses if I distribute to get back to that original statement. The next step is super important, that these 2 groups right here, they have to match. Since we have that matching binomial, we're going to separate those out as my first factor. And then my second factor in this technique is kind of the leftovers. So 3x squared minus 7. Remember, we are solving an equation, so all of this is technically still equal to 0. What we know from this point is that once you have factored an equation, in order to solve it, we use a strategy known as split and solve. So we're going to split apart each of these factor groups and set each of them individually equal to 0. That'll leave me with 2 equations to solve. So my first solution here is going to be -2. My second solution, I'm going to add 7 to undo the subtraction. Divide by 3 to undo the multiplication. Since x squared is equal to 7/3, I know now I need to square root. I'm going to square root the top and the bottom of this fraction individually. Squares and square roots undo each other, so x equals, gotta remember when we use a square root to bring in a plus or minus symbol. And what's also important with square roots is we're not allowed to have this radical down here left in the denominator. So we use this process called rationalizing. We multiply the top and the bottom by the issue, which is that square root of 3 in the denominator. So when I multiply in my numerator, square root of 7 times square root of 3 is going to give me the square root of 21 over square root of 3 times the square root of 3 will become the square root of 9. And I know that the square root of 9 is positive 3. So here on my second solution, this technically counts as 2 solutions because of the plus or minus. So I have 1, 2, 3 solutions. And remember, we had degree 3 up here in the beginning. So we have solved this equation and we found all of the solutions. All right, that is the first polynomial equation. We're going to solve a second polynomial equation now. Okay.